Shabbat Shalom. Until about a month ago, whenever I heard the words cannonball, I assumed it was either a swimming move that you would do in a pool, or it was a movie from the early 1980s starring Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, and Sammy Davis Jr. By the laughter, I'm not the only one who enjoyed the cannonball run. But over this last month, cannonball has taken on a different meaning, as we've seen yet another battle taking place in our country. Nowadays, cannonball is actually associated with the Standing Rock Sioux community as they battle an oil pipeline being put in. Now, this is not just a small oil pipeline. It's an 1,100-mile, $3.8 billion oil pipeline that is being run, and part of it is going under a lake that belongs to the Sioux reservation. So for the last month, a large group of Native Americans have actually been camping out at this site in protest of the construction of the oil pipeline. Now, we saw a bit of it right before Thanksgiving with the police taking on these protesters, and it was a strange sight on Thanksgiving of all times of year to see American police officers taking on Native Americans. Nevertheless, the battle has continued. Robert Kennedy Jr. is out there protesting, and now something like 2,000 veterans of the United States military are coming out to actually protect the Standing Rock Sioux community and the protesters in case the police try to remove them from this makeshift campsite that they've set up in protest of the pipeline. Now, who's right in this battle? Whose side of the issue do we go with? I mean, most of us, I shouldn't say most of us, I tend to side with what I see quickly as the oppressed. Right? My tendency is to go and stand with the Standing Rock community and say they don't deserve, after all that the Native Americans have been through in our country, they don't deserve to have an oil pipeline running directly under a lake that provides them water. But if we look at the other side of the issue, if we look at the perspective from the oil company, they have held a public hearing upon public hearing upon public hearing, giving people the opportunity to vent their opposition. They have achieved every single legal requirement that they've needed to in order to move forward with the construction of this pipeline. They're in pursuit of business, which is a right here in America. And of course, they are seeking to continue to keep us off of Middle East oil, which is something that all of us, frankly, should be in support of. So whose side do we take? And in fact, whose perspective on the issue is actually the true perspective? Now, we can read Fox or watch Fox News, and we can watch MSNBC. We can read Haaretz or Ma'ariv or Times of Israel. We can watch ABC, NBC, CBS. We can read the New York Times, and we can read the Wall Street Journal. And they're all going to give slightly different truths to what is happening there in Standing Rock. And somehow we're going to have to decipher all of that information, all of those perspectives, and try to glean truth. It's a funny concept, this idea of truth. Over the last month, and in fact over the last several months, we've seen a whole lot of truths being put forward. Whose truth is the right truth? Whose truth is the truth? What we come to see in so many different situations is there's their truth and their truth. And we know, if we're really honest with ourselves, there's also God's truth as well. That's the only absolute truth. Yet all of us speak as if we are in possession of the truth. So we come to our Torah portion this morning, and you're welcome to take out your Eitz Chaim Chumashim and read along with me as we turn to Parashat Tol'dot. And here I am in Genesis chapter 25, page 148. Page 148 in our Eitz Chaim Chumashim. And here we're learning about the continuity of the Jewish people as Abraham and Sarah both died, and Isaac and Rebekah are now parents themselves to twins, to Jacob and Esau, or Esau and Jacob if you're going in the right birth order. And here we are. It's unclear how old exactly Esau and Jacob are at this point. Nevertheless, we know that Esau is favored by his father Isaac, and Jacob is favored by his mother, Rebekah. And so we come, and again, I'm on page 148. The Torah tells us once when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the open. He was ayef, he was famished. And Esau said to Jacob, "Give me some of that red stuff to gulp down, for I am famished." Which is why Esau was named Edom. Jacob said, "First, sell me your birthright." And Esau said, "I am at the point of death, so what of use is my birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to him. Jacob then gave Esau bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, and he rose and went away. Thus did Esau spurn the birthright. Now there are some people who claim that the truth of this story is that Jacob stole the birthright from his brother who was so hungry he was at the point of death. It said twice in here that Esau was famished. He was at the point of death. And then Jacob says, "Okay, I'll feed you this lentils that I've made, but only if you give me the birthright." This inheritance of the covenant between God and Abraham. By a show of hands, how many of you think that Jacob ultimately stole the birthright from his brother Esau? Okay. Some of you. Now the rabbis read this part of the Torah very differently. They say when Esau claims to have been ayef, to have been famished, he wasn't hungry. His soul was empty, not his stomach. His soul was empty. He was a spiritless man. And so Esau didn't care about the birthright. So he came in and he saw his brother making some soup. And he said to his brother, "Give me some soup." Jacob did. And Esau gave him the birthright because he could have cared less about it. And then, and only then, once Esau realized what he did, does the Torah say, "Thus did Esau spurn the birthright." After the fact, after he traded his birthright for some soup, he felt guilty about it. And then started saying that Jacob swindled him into selling that birthright. Whose side is the truth? Jacob's or Esau's? The pshat, the plain reading of the text, or the rabbi's reading of it? Now we could look at another section later in our Torah portion this morning in Parashat Tol'dot. And here we know the famous story of Jacob coming before his father Isaac and trying to get the special blessing from Isaac, the blessing that belongs to the firstborn, which should have been Esau's. And we know Rebekah is in cahoots with her son Jacob to try to steal this blessing away from the other brother Esau. And we know about this exchange. We know that Jacob begins cooking some food that smells like meat. And so Isaac says, "This smells like the meat of my son Esau. Is it Esau?" And Jacob says, "Yes, father, it is. It's Esau." And Isaac says to Jacob, "Come closer, Jacob." And he smells him and he says, "It smells like Esau. Are you really Esau?" "Yes," Jacob says, "I am." And he touches him, and it feels like Esau. And Isaac says again, "It feels like Esau, but is this really Esau?" And Jacob says, "Yes, it is." And it goes on like this for a few minutes, over and over again. Isaac saying, "Really, really, this is Esau?" He was blind at the time. And Jacob says, "Yes, this is Esau." How many people think in that way Jacob duped his father Isaac? Sure seems like it. But if we take a more careful look at our Torah portion, we read at the very beginning of our Torah portion that God spoke to Rebekah herself and said, yes, you're going to have twins, you'll have an older and a younger, but the younger one is the one who's going to get the blessing. And here later on, Isaac asks over and over again, you're sure this is Esau? Did Isaac know exactly what was happening? Did Isaac have a hunch that it was actually Jacob? Maybe. So if that were the case, Isaac knew exactly what he was doing, and maybe there wasn't a duping that took place. What's the truth? His side? His side? Or God's side? Most of the time, the truth is somewhere in the middle. Now, all of us have been arguing for many months now about what's best for the country, about what's best for our communities, about what's best for our families. And so many of us have watched the rhetoric pick up, the anger exacerbated, the level of discourse has plunged in our country, so that even what seems like modest news articles, modest news reports, start off by calling someone a racist, or a sycophant, or an idiot. Think of the language that we use in our discourse. We argue, we yell, we speak as if we are in possession of the truth. And only we are in possession of the truth. Now imagine if we took a step back in our national debates. Imagine if we took a step back even in the debates among our own families and said, this is my perspective and not necessarily the truth. And imagine if the other side took a step back and said, this is my perspective, but not necessarily the truth. And we all admitted that we're doing our best, but our best contains only partial truths, because there is one and only one absolute truth. That's God's truth. And sadly, it is unobtainable to us humans, except for my wife. There's truth. Imagine how our level of discourse would change in this country if we took a good, honest, hard look at our own opinions and our own perspectives and said, I'm doing my best, but I recognize it's not the truth. Then maybe we could speak to each other with a little more respect. Then maybe we could go about our lives with a little more humility. Then maybe we could actually get a little closer not only to the absolute truth, but to accomplishing what we want to accomplish in this world, in standing up for those who are in need, in comforting the afflicted, in protecting the rights of all Americans, and in bringing peace where there is strife. If you really want to make a difference in this world, and if you really want to change the mind of another person in order to accomplish that difference in this world, let me suggest that you'll be a lot more successful by not yelling and not calling somebody else names, but by speaking with respect, by speaking with humility. This Shabbat of Parashat Tol'dot, when we seek the continuity of the Jewish people, let us remember that there's their truth, there's their truth, and there's God's truth. And we can only do our best to bring each side together to accomplish what God wants us to accomplish in this world. Adonai oz amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. May God grant us the strength to speak with humility and with respect. And in that way, may God allow us to do what it is that we are put on earth to do, which is to bring peace where there is strife. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will, and let us say together.